Bryce-Pease has the latest for us, and he joins us on the line from Washington in the United States. Sharon, a very good afternoon to you. A big historical moment has finally arrived. How are the preparations going in Washington?
Well, Alicia, the stage really is set for the 45th President of the United States. I feel that we've been talking about this presidential election in the United States for 2 years. And I think it has been 24 months. So we are looking forward, I think, as a journalism fraternity, I think as American citizens in the United States, and possibly people who have been following this like yourself from around the world. I think, we want to see and witness the culmination of this very lengthy campaigning process. This presidential election really did set records, whether in terms of the amount of money spent on the campaigns and just in terms of the time dedicated to it. So this is Donald Trump's moment. He will ascend to the highest office. He will end the era of the first black president of the United States and make history in his own right.
Sharon, look, give us the scope. We hear that of those over 800,000 who will be attending the inauguration, some are just simply there to protest his election.
Well, today is inauguration day, but of course tomorrow is this very historic Women's March on Washington. I mean, they decided to do this very, very epic march the minute Donald Trump won the election in November last night. In New York, we saw the mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, headline a protest, basically laying out their agenda of how they are going to, from a grassroots level up, oppose this president's policies, things like immigration reform. Of course, one of his trademark philosophies throughout the entire campaign was to build a wall. In terms of job creation, in terms of deporting illegal immigrants in this country, there are going to be very particular policy concerns that Democrats, certainly people on the left, have against this president. And we saw that in New York last night. Several 100,000 people are expected to be in Washington on Saturday, one day after this inauguration. And from just hitting the streets yesterday in the piece you played before this interview, we weren't expecting to run into opposition people in terms of this president. We were there to talk to Republicans about, this great moment that they're going to be celebrating. The 8 years ago when we hit the streets when Barack Obama ascended to the high office. But we ran into people that were here in opposition. We've heard that planefuls have arrived to protest this president, and that will take root come Saturday morning.
Sharon, let's expand on that. I mean, a few of his decisions, like you've mentioned, have already raised eyebrows. I mean, issues like the Mexico border wall and, of course, the debacle around the motor industry in that same country. The public announcement about him scrapping the Obamacare, as well as the worries about the U.S. currently not being on an alternative functional medical aid structure, which could mean billions of revenue being lost. And now the famous view, as you've just mentioned again, the foreign policy issues. Take us through some of these. I mean, the great effect it could have upon the Americans.
There's sort of a cultural resistance to what Donald Trump in many ways represents. I mean, if you look at his cabinet appointments, for example, they're now referring to his cabinet as possibly the least representative in a generation. Not a single Latino has been appointed. Something like 80% of his cabinet is white, older, male. 18 out of the 26 that he has nominated. So there's a sense here that the upper government structure of the United States is not going to be representative of the diversity that is the society that is American society. Of course, you've mentioned a number of policy concerns, and so you're going to see, I think, strong opposition from a limited Democratic opposition, whether in the Senate and the House of Representatives. There's a real sense here that the era of Obama, never mind just the era, but certainly his legacy is going to be undermined by some of the policy initiatives that Republicans are wanting to introduce, whether through executive order or, as you mentioned, the repeal of Obama's signature healthcare legislation, historic healthcare legislation. So there are a number of unknowns as to what exactly is going to happen under a Trump presidency, and I think you will see that concern taken to the streets in the days ahead.
All right, Sharon, a very quick one before I let you go. We've all heard Michelle and Barack's farewell speeches last week. I mean, analysts around the world have come out to say that Obama was a model family. And of course, Barack, one of the finest U.S. presidents, based, of course, on his inclusive approach on many issues. Were there some sentiments still among the Americans at this stage?
Well, I spoke to a political scientist, Dr. Christina Greer, who teaches at Fordham University. She teaches political science there, and she made the point that this has been a president without scandal. I mean, I think to paraphrase what she said was, he literally came to Washington and he did the job. No women, no scandals. He just got on with it. And I think that epitomizes what many here refer to the perfect first family. They rose above everything, the racist attacks, the partisan attacks, the comparisons to animals, if you will, the racist denunciations from the right. And so you have this black family that kind of represented, the first moment for black people in this country in the White House. And so they literally couldn't mess it up, to use vernacular language. They couldn't mess this up, and they didn't. And I think that will be part of his legacy when we talk about him in 20 years' time.
So, Sharon, let's understand the order of handing over of power now. Does this mean that after this evening, Donald Trump starts making and changing certain policies, which has been very vocal about? Maybe help us understand how the transition of power will actually take effect. Also, that this is the Republicans' first president after George W. Bush.
Well, certainly. I mean, the program today on the steps of Capitol Hill is more symbolic. I think already Donald Trump is essentially the president of the United States. He just now needs to go through the formal swearing in today. And the minute that is ended, whether the parade is continuing as the Obamas drive into the sunset and take their flight to Palm Springs to begin his vacation and to begin embracing this notion of being private citizens in this country after 8 years, Donald Trump essentially has the reins of power. And we are told by his spokesperson and several of his surrogates that he will begin to immediately implement his agenda. We are told that within hours he will begin to sign executive orders before the weekend is up to deal with certain things, to push back certain executive orders that they believe were unconstitutionally written in by the Obama administration, things like immigration reform, giving people that were born here to illegal immigrants sort of a grace period. Those things are all going to be rolled back. So immediately, once the ceremonial part of today is over, Donald Trump will begin to put his finger on the buttons, if you will.
All right, and Sharon, a very quick one before I let you go. I know I've been saying this. What time are the actual official proceedings supposed to begin in Washington this evening?
Well, the official proceedings will actually start in a matter of hours. There is a ceremony, a tradition here, where the president-elect goes to the St. John's Episcopal Church for a short service. To start off his day, he will then take a short drive around the corner to the White House, where they will have a private tea. The president-elect's family and the incumbent the outgoing President Obama and Michelle. And then they will share a motorcade, Alicia, a short drive down Pennsylvania Avenue from the White House to Capitol Hill for the official ceremonies today. So matters will get officially underway in terms of televised access to Capitol Hill at around 6:30 p.m. South African time, and Donald Trump will be president at about noon.
All right, and Sharon, I know
which is 7 p.m. your time.
Yes. Sharon, I know this might not be on record, but there were rumors that George W. Bush was actually hospitalized. Do we know if he's still going to be attending the inauguration this evening?
Well, there are two George Bushes, and you're referring to the 41st president of the United States, George H.W. Bush, the 92-year-old in Houston, Texas. He remains in ICU, but we're told he's on the upswing. His wife, Barbara, is also being treated for fatigue in that hospital. But my understanding is that the son, the 43rd president of the United States, George H.W. Bush, will be in attendance with his wife, Laura. And interestingly enough, the Clintons, Bill and Hillary Clinton, will be in one of the prime seats on Capitol Hill later today.
Sharon, thank you so much for that update. We'll definitely keep in touch with you as those proceedings begin out in Washington. That is Sharon Bryce-Pease, our U.S. correspondent, at the heart of the things in Washington, D.C. in the United States, as the world awaits for the official inauguration of Donald Trump as America's 45th president. Well, now joining me in